Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed about the war on terror. It's a military solution to a criminal problem. Since 9/11, we've employed numerous terms to describe our adversaries in the war on terror. Terrorists, obviously, enemy combatants, unlawful combatants, but to me, the term that describes them the best is one that is hardly ever used to describe them. Criminals. And here's another one. Outlaws. They aren't conducting military operations as members of a state army. They're members of private armies, also known as, and here's another term that doesn't get thrown around nearly as often as it should in this context, gangs. Look, I'm not saying that there was never any legitimate role for the military here. Clearly, in situations where the government of a state is sympathetic to Al-Qaeda or the like, the military would have been necessary to find these people and bring them to justice. But finding them and bringing them to justice should have been the goal, not invading and occupying other countries. And when I say bring them to justice, I mean to the civilian criminal justice system, where they should have stood trial and, if convicted, been sent to civilian prisons, not places like the prison camp at Guantanamo Bay. The most disheartening thing about the war on terror is how willingly the United States has abandoned its most celebrated values in order to pursue it. From the very beginning, in the wounded and uncertain aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, this has been framed from our side as a battle against forces that seek to destroy our way of life. So what do we do when we capture individuals suspected of being part of those forces? We lock them away in an offshore military prison, often without ever even charging them with a crime, thus betraying the principles that define the noblest part of the way of life the war on terror is supposedly being waged to protect. And the detention camp at Guantanamo is not the end of that. Not by a long shot. The Patriot Act. Boy, I am racking up the liberal cred on this one, aren't I? Conducting the war on terror as a military operation instead of a criminal police operation is one example of how the United States overreacted to the 9/11 attacks. And here's another one, the Patriot Act, by which the government empowered itself to more easily and extensively spy on American citizens and to disregard quaint legal inconveniences like probable cause and judicial review. And perhaps the most infuriating thing about the Patriot Act is that it's still the law, despite the fact that many provisions of it were designed to expire in 2005. They've been extended multiple times since, including twice during the Obama administration. Miss him. As far as the war on terror goes, it's like he never left. All right, that was a low blow. There goes that liberal cred. Look, to be fair to President Obama, he has taken steps to address some of the more egregious excesses of the war on terror. For example, the use and justification of torture. Patriotism can do things to people. Terrible, warping, disfiguring things. For example, it can convince an otherwise well-adjusted, morally normal person that a brutal interrogation technique that simulates drowning, that was considered torture when other countries did it to our citizens, and that used to be illegal when we did it too, isn't actually torture because, well, we're not really trying to kill anybody with it, and the guys that we're doing it to are like really, really, really bad. And, well, what if there's a ticking bomb? Maybe. I assume it goes without saying that when I refer to well-adjusted, morally normal people, I'm not talking about him. Right? Okay. It's endless. President Obama says the war on terror must eventually end. Well, that's a nice thought. Best of luck with that, Mr. President, but you've got a lot of work ahead of you before that can happen. And I'm not just talking about winding down the overseas contingency operations either. I'm talking about closing the Guantanamo prison, repealing the Patriot Act, or at least allowing the next expiration date to pass without another extension. I'm talking about beginning to treat captured terrorists like criminals rather than prisoners of war. Sure, it all sounds simple just to hear me say it, but it's going to take a lot of work and political will to make it happen. But even though it is an incredibly daunting task. I'm confident that one day the war on terror will be a thing of the past, and even the new technology that it has brought to the forefront, for instance, Predator drones, will be utilized toward more legitimate purposes, like assassinating hostile heads of state. The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.